Okay, so get this right. I'm reading this article, and it like totally blew my mind. It's about cryonics,
Yeah.
freezing people to like bring them back in the future. But well, the thing that really got me was the why. Like, why are people, especially these billionaires, like so obsessed with this whole idea?
Yeah, it's wild, right? But the thing is, this article isn't just about the science fiction aspect of it all. It goes way deeper, looking into the psychology,
Yeah.
the motivations, the reasons behind this desire for like immortality.
Exactly. It's like
Yeah.
Srinidhi Ranganathan, the author, he's like known as the human AI, and he totally nails it in this article. I mean, this guy, he's a legend in digital marketing.
Oh, yeah.
But he also has this incredible ability to break down these really complex topics and connect all the dots in a way you wouldn't expect. And you can tell he did a ton of research for this article, for sure.
Absolutely. And, he makes this really interesting point that for a lot of these billionaires, it's not just about living longer, it's about control. Like, they've spent their whole lives accumulating wealth and power, and they see death as the ultimate loss of control.
Oh, totally. It's like they're trying to cheat the system. And not just death, but like the passage of time itself. They want to write their own stories, even beyond the grave.
Right. And that's where it gets really fascinating because the article also goes into the technical side of cryonics, like the actual process of, freezing and storing bodies. It's way more complicated than just like sticking someone in a deep freezer,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
They were talking about how they use these special solutions, right? Cryoprotectant solutions or something like that to prevent ice crystals from forming because they can damage the cells. And then there's this whole other process called vitrification, where they basically turn the body into a glass-like state. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's incredible the lengths they go to. But even if they perfect this whole freezing and storage thing, there's still the massive question of revival. Ranganathan brings that up too.
Totally. Like, will they actually have the technology to revive people in the future? And even if they do, will future generations even want to bring these people back?
That's the gamble, right? You're investing all this money and faith in a future that might not even care about you. And Ranganathan, he paints this really vivid picture of what could go wrong.
Yeah, like, what if centuries pass, civilizations rise and fall, and you're just stuck there, frozen in time, with no one to unfreeze you?
And, what if the company that's storing your body, what if they go bankrupt? Or there's a natural disaster and the whole facility gets wiped out? Or even crazier, what if future society just decides like, you know what, your values just don't fit in with our world?
Oh, wow. That's almost like a horror movie waiting to happen. You wake up centuries later, alone, in a world you don't even recognize, a relic of some forgotten past.
Exactly. And that's just scratching the surface of what Ranganathan gets into in this article. It really makes you think, what really gets me about this whole thing is it's not just about these billionaires and their like sci-fi dreams, Ranganathan makes us think bigger. Like, what does this whole cryonics thing say about us as a society?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
That's what I loved about this article. It wasn't just about the how of cryonics, but like the why. And Ranganathan argues that this whole fascination with immortality, it kind of reveals like a deeper anxiety about our own mortality, and this desire to control how we're remembered, like our legacy.
Exactly. And he connects it to our obsession with like our digital legacy, right? Social media, online archives. It's like we're trying to curate how we're remembered even after we're gone.
It's so true. It's like we're all building these digital monuments to ourselves, hoping they'll, last forever.
Yeah.
But what if, like Ranganathan says, what if future generations don't even care about our like carefully crafted online personas?
It's a humbling thought, right? We spend so much time trying to shape how we're perceived, but ultimately, history will judge us on its own terms.
That makes me think about another point Ranganathan brought up, the ethical implications of all this.
Yeah.
Like, what if revival actually works?
Oh, right. Like, what kind of world would these people be waking up to? Would they be, like, welcomed or seen as relics of a bygone era? Would they even want to be revived in a world they no longer recognize?
And think about the resources it would take to, like, support all these people. Housing, healthcare, education. All of it would be strained. Ranganathan even suggests it can make existing inequalities worse and create like a whole new class divide between the revived and the born.
It's complicated. There are no easy answers. And Ranganathan doesn't pretend to have them all. But he does raise some important questions that we as a society need to think about.
But here's the thing. Even with all the potential downsides, the idea of immortality, it's still so alluring. Like, who hasn't fantasized about living forever?
Totally. It's a totally human desire, right? But Ranganathan, he makes us think about the potential burden of immortality. Imagine, like, witnessing centuries of change, experiencing all these losses, potentially outliving everyone you love.
Yeah, suddenly my FOMO about not living forever is fading a bit. It sounds kind of exhausting, actually.
Yeah, it could be. And that's what I think is so valuable about Ranganathan's perspective. He's not saying cryonics is good or bad. He's just challenging us to, like, think critically about why we want it, our values, and what it actually means to live a meaningful life.
So maybe instead of focusing on extending our lifespan, we should think about how to make the most of the time we have.
Right. It's about finding purpose and connection in the present, contributing to something bigger than ourselves, building a legacy that goes beyond just like our physical existence.
That's what I found so inspiring about this whole deep dive. It started with billionaires and their futuristic fantasies, but it's really about all of us and how we choose to live our lives, knowing that our time is limited.
And knowing our time is limited, that can actually be motivating. It can push us to savor each moment, appreciate the people in our lives, make choices that align with our values.
It's like Ranganathan is saying, hey, instead of chasing some hypothetical future, why not focus on making the present as meaningful as possible?
Exactly. And that's a message we can all relate to, right? Whether we're billionaires dreaming of escaping death or just everyday people trying to find meaning in our lives.
It's funny, right? We started talking about billionaires freezing themselves, and now we're like having this deep philosophical conversation about the meaning of life.
That's Ranganathan for you. He takes these like out there topics and uses them to explore these big questions about life and death and, legacy. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really makes you think. And honestly, my whole perspective on cryonics has shifted after reading this and talking to you about it.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, before, I kind of thought it was this like creepy sci-fi thing. But now, I don't know, I see it as this kind of sad thing, like this attempt to control something you can't. Like it's almost tragic,
I get that. It's like these billionaires are so used to, getting what they want that they can't accept the idea of death.
Right. And then Ranganathan makes this point, like, what if it backfires? Like, imagine waking up hundreds of years later in a world that's totally alien and your values, like your beliefs, they're outdated or even dangerous.
Yeah, it's kind of scary when you think about it like that. You might live forever, but you lose everything you know.
And what would you even do with all that time? Could you even find meaning in a world that's so different from the one you left behind?
Ranganathan doesn't really give us the answers, does he?
No, he doesn't.
I think he wants us to figure that out for ourselves. What do we value?
Right. So what does all this mean for, like, the rest of us, the non-billionaires, the ones who aren't planning on becoming popsicles?
I think Ranganathan's message is pretty clear. Instead of worrying about living longer, we should focus on making a difference now, while we're here.
Yeah, like instead of chasing immortality, maybe we should be aiming for legacy, leaving something positive behind.
Exactly. And that's something anyone can do, right? It's not about money or status. It's about the choices you make, the connections you build, the contributions you make.
Wow. This has been quite a journey. I mean, we started with billionaires trying to cheat death, and now we're talking about living life to the fullest.
It is pretty wild, isn't it? But I think that's a good takeaway, right? While those frozen billionaires wait to see what happens, we can focus on making our own lives meaningful, make a difference.
I love that. Cheers to that. And to Srinidhi Ranganathan, the human AI, for giving us so much to think about.
Absolutely. This article was something else.
And that's a wrap for this deep dive into cryonics and the quest for immortality. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time for another fascinating topic.